I'm here in the menu of the Leica Q2, and I got some feedback on recent videos I did on the Leica Q2. I started to do them just when I got it. And one question I got repeatedly is, how is the camera in terms of focus tracking? And my typical setup is in drive mode, I'm on single, but you can, of course, if you keep pressing the shutter, go to continuous shooting, low speed, medium speed, high speed, super speed, and the more frames per second the camera is taking, the less it will refocus or remeter. So I'm typically on single, and for a little experiment we can also stay on single. Then on focusing, we have various options here. So first of all, I'm typically in autofocus single shooting. So focus is not updating, and that's actually what you don't want to have if you want to do focus tracking. So we should go to autofocus continuous, AFC here. And then on autofocus mode, I'm typically in spot autofocus. So I like that tiny little spot, so I know exactly where the camera is focusing. But if you go to tracking, there are two modes here basically. There is the normal tracking mode and face detection, where it should especially lock on to faces by some software recognition. And I tried them both now with a little experiment and see how well it is doing. And I will do this in two different aperture modes. One will be f8, where we have a large depth of field, and one will be just wide open at f1.7. And I'm going to see how tracking is working in both modes, normal tracking, face detection, with respect to these two different aperture modes here. So the way I'm going to do this experiment is I have this little figure here in front of me on the table. It's actually a garden dwarf. And the garden dwarf has a face, and I have my iPhone looking through the viewfinder, and you see here tracking at f8 is working quite well, even with weird movements. Now we go to face tracking at f8. I think that's also working somehow okay. Face tracking is always a bit more tricky, is my experience with the camera from these little test shootings here, but it's working at f8. And now in a moment we come to f1.7. So now we have the widest open aperture we can have. And I think here actually the tracking is doing very, very well. So look at the movements I'm doing with the camera, and it still locks on. It's not getting distorted or in any way distracted from the target. It just stays on target here. Very nice. And now the last thing is face tracking at a wide open aperture. And that's more tricky. You see here that it loses focus from time to time. And I think this is the worst performing mode as I saw it in these four little experiments. But in general, I should say, despite the little issues with wide open aperture on face tracking, the camera tracks focus quite well, and I'm happy with it.